We're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say, you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of Bucknell Men's Cross Country Through the Decades. Tonight we have the decade of the 90s. We've got some outstanding alums on the call, joining head coach Kevin Donner and one of our current student athletes, Ben Littman. Ben is a senior from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we're happy to have him on tonight's call. My name's Todd Newcomb, and I want to thank Geisinger as our sponsor for tonight's edition of Through the Decades. Geisinger has been absolutely fantastic throughout the pandemic. And of course, on a day in, day out basis, they do a great job with our student athletes here at Bucknell. So thank you to Geisinger for their support. I'll get right to it and introduce our guest, and then I'll turn it over to Coach Donner. Our first guest from the class of 1991 is Norbert Bereni. He was an ECC individual champ in 1989. He was the Patriot League individual champ in 1990. And of course, that's when the Patriot League formed and Bucknell left the East Coast Conference. He was an all-Patriot League selection as well in 1990. In outdoor track, he was the Patriot League champion in the 1,500-meter run in 1991. In indoor track, he was a two-time East Coast Conference champion, a two-time Patriot League champion. He was All-East as a member of the DMR that finished sixth in 1990. And he won the Alvin F. Jackson Jr. Memorial Scholar Athlete Award at the department's senior awards dinner. Our next guest from the class of 1992 is Matt Deardorff. Matt was the Patriot League individual champion in 1991. He was an all-Patriot League selection in both 1990 and 1991. He was All-East in 1991, where he finished 20th. In outdoor track, he was a two-time Patriot League champion in the 5,000-meter run. He was All-East in 1992 with a third-place finish in the 10K. In indoor track, he was a two-time ECC champion. He was also the Patriot League champion in a 3,000-meter run in 1991. He was All-East in the 5,000-meter run with a third-place finish in 1992. He's also an outstanding scholar. He was a two-time Patriot League Scholar Athlete Award winner. He was winner of the ECAC Medallion in 1991. He was a two-time first-team National Academic All-American, and he won a prestigious NCAA postgraduate scholarship in 1992. Matt also won the Alvin F. Jackson Jr. Memorial Scholar Athlete Award at the department's senior awards dinner. Matt was inducted into the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 2019. Our next guest from the class of 1999, Wally Dietrich. Wally was an all-Patriot League selection in 1996 and 1998. In outdoor track, he was a Patriot League champion in the 10K in 1999. He was an all-Patriot League selection in 99. He was All-East in 1997 with an eighth-place finish in the 10K. Wally won the Club Award at the department's senior awards dinner, and Wally has been a longtime member of the Bison Club Board of Directors. And our final guest from the class of 2000, David Bronfenbrenner. He was a Patriot League individual champion in 1999. He was an all-Patriot League selection in 1997, 1998, and 1999. In outdoor track, he was a two-time Patriot League champion in the steeplechase. He was a two-time all-Patriot League selection and also a two-time All-East performer in that event, finishing fourth in both 1999 and 2000. David won the Ronald J. Pete Pedrick Award at the department's senior awards dinner. So, Kevin, we've got a great cast. It's going to be a great call. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Todd. And once again, guys, thanks for coming out. This is really a fun thing. I was with the 70s guys and the 80s guys yesterday. Now it's your turn. And you guys are like royalty to our program here. And Ben Littman is our present captain. He's a senior, and he's going to be listening in. And so far, our student athletes have really enjoyed hearing about the history of our program. But more importantly, they love hearing the funny stories, and I'm sure you guys have your share. So my first question, I'm going to ask each and every one of you one at a time. And we're going to start with David here. Before we begin sharing the memories of your time at Bucknell, can you update us on your personal life, where you live, your career, and your family? Basically, what have you done since Bucknell, David?
So since Bucknell, so right now I live in Corning, New York, the Southern Finger Lakes region. So just a 2-hour drive up 15, and I'm pretty much right off 15 up here. When I left Bucknell, I worked for a little while and actually went back to graduate school and got my doctorate in material science out in California. And then I moved here to Corning, and I've been working as a scientist and product line manager for the last 13 years. Right now, I lead all new product development for catalytic conversion for gasoline vehicles. For my family, I married a fellow Bucknellian, Tria Tyler, who was a thrower on the team and I think still holds the school record in the discus. And she and I have 3 kids. They're in, Lily, Kai, and Jack are in 5th grade, 4th grade, and 2nd grade. So they are getting bigger quickly, and they keep us busy most of the time.
All right. Matt, I mean, we saw you at the Hall of Fame last year, and congratulations again on that. But tell us what you've been doing.
Yeah, so when I left Bucknell, I went down to Philadelphia to medical school, and geez, it started off as 4 years, but I ended up spending 9 years in med school and decided to do a PhD during that. So, and then after finishing up at Penn Med, moved about 200 yards across the courtyard to Children's Hospital there, and did my clinical training in pediatrics and human genetics. And then moved another 200 yards across the courtyard into a research building there at Children's Hospital in Penn, and spent 13 years there. And just recently, my wife and I took new positions out here in LA, and we're just getting settled in. But we're at the Children's Hospital here in LA and at University of Southern California. So we're kind of adjusting to the heat and I would say the laid back California style a little bit. We have to kind of dial down our intensity some, I think. But we're having a good time. So.
Great. Gonna have to get a hold of Mark Hume.
I think so. He's going to have to show me
there.
the lay of the land.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, Wally, tell us what you've been doing.
Well, so right after Bucknell, most of you guys know, I stayed on to Bucknell and got my master's degree. I left briefly to start a career in consulting and came back to Bucknell to coach while Coach Golden was sick. Went back to DC. And I currently live in St. Michael's, Maryland. A long time getting here. So a lot of time in DC with a bunch of other fellow Bucknell alums. 4 years in Australia, traveled all over the world with consulting. And now I've come back to the Eastern Shore of Maryland. So I'm in St. Michael's, Maryland, huge supporter of the program. Married to another communications consultant who's sitting right here next to me. It's like Mr. and Mrs. Smith around here. Not that we're competitive, but we are. And it's good to see you guys. I have stories for each of you, and maybe a pair of Deardorff's boxer shorts. They were lended to me trying to get to a wedding from one of our alumni. So, yeah.
Do they still smell?
No, they're still clean. The elastic's wearing out, though. I got to be honest, buddy.
All right. Well, thanks, Wally. And Norbert?
Well, when I graduated from Bucknell, I started working for General Electric. I got a position down in Rockville, Maryland. Was on a rotational program for the first 2 years. My second 8-month rotation got me out to Los Angeles, so I got the excitement like Matt's starting to realize now. About 2 weeks after moving out to LA is when the Los Angeles riots hit. So got to get locked in my apartment for about 4 days while they sorted all that out. So this COVID thing is just, just following up on what I learned many, many years ago. Went back to Rockville, Maryland with GE, took a position with them in Manhattan. I was working GE Information Services for about a year. And I switched over to GE Capital in Stamford, Connecticut. And I ended up working about a total of 7 years with General Electric. I then switched over to Atlantic Mobile, which then became Verizon Wireless. For all these jobs, I was just an IT geek doing whatever they needed me to do. I ended up staying with Verizon Wireless for 21 and a half years. I left them in June of 2019. They some people, they offered packages, so I decided to take one of those. It was nice with the time off. I got to go up to Bucknell and see Matt get inducted into the Hall of Fame. And in December of last year, I started working as a software engineer for Fanatics. Anyone on the call, if you're looking for any Bucknell gear and you're nowhere near Lewisburg, go to fanatics.com and I'm sure you can find some good stuff there. As far as family, I married a former swimmer. My wife, Jen, she was a four-time Big East champ at Seton Hall and actually the first female swimmer inducted into Seton Hall's Athletic Hall of Fame. While I was courting her, I used the line that, you know, if we get married and have kids, we'd be 2/3 of the way to a great triathlete. Her response to me was, you know, we'll end up having chess players. Well, we have two daughters. First daughter, Bella, she's my leap year baby, so she's either 16 or 4, depending on how you do the math. And my second daughter, Jules, is 13. Neither of them seem to get the bug for running or swimming, so I think my wife was right about that. And now, of course, I currently live now, after all that bouncing around, I'm in Wesley Chapel, which is just a northern suburb of Tampa.
Okay. Good. All right, that's everybody. I'm going to fire some questions at different people, but let's go back to Dave. Take us back to the beginning and tell us about your recruiting experience. How'd you end up at Bucknell, Dave?
Also, I have a little bit of different background. So I was not the greatest runner in high school. When I was deciding on colleges, I had run 10:30 in the 2 mile. And I actually was a better high jumper than distance runner. So I came to Bucknell I heard about it through friends and through engineering, and came to Bucknell and interviewed with the assistant coach at the time. And heard that they didn't make cuts on their team and they allowed any runner on, and knew that I wanted to run in school. I was in a little sheltered life. You know, this is before the internet, so I had no idea that I was slow. I thought I was fast. So I came to Bucknell thinking that I would do okay. So I actually applied to early decision, and actually Bucknell was the only school I applied to, and so that's where I came. The only words, well, maybe I should save that story for meeting Coach Goulden, but the only words I had ever said to Coach Goulden before showing up the first day of practice is when I tried to congratulate him after a second place finish at Patriot Leagues, because it was near my hometown. And I guess the Bucknell guys had run terrible. I thought they ran great. And Coach made the comment to me when I walked up to him after the race. I said, "Hi, Coach," and he said, "Just pray for me." And those are the only words I ever spoke with Coach Goulden before showing up on campus.
We ran absolutely horrific that day.
I came from a school that was lucky to field 5 runners, so I thought it was great. It inspired me. Yeah, so I came to Bucknell and had a little bit of a rude awakening on the first day of practice on Old Farmers. Took me some time to adjust, but I think in the second week I was at Bucknell, I broke my PR on the 2 mile. So.
All right. Interesting story.
Yeah.
Matt, how'd you end up at Bucknell? Geez, how did I end up there? I was trying to remember this, but so I went to, I was from South Central Pennsylvania, went to Chambersburg to high school. And in that area, I spent a lot of time running in high school with the 2 Herneisen brothers, Jeremy and Todd. And Steve West lived down the road from them, and kind of we all knew each other pretty well. So I think I kind of got introduced to Bucknell from that perspective, or that's probably why I ended up there. I kind of looked at a bunch of colleges that had running programs coming out of high school, and I think really kind of the thing that attracted me to Bucknell was that it was not just running. There was running and kind of a bunch of people that were trying to get something done kind of beyond running as well. With the email, I was trying to remember recruiting visits, but I don't have too many. I don't have the Bronf colorful story from that perspective. But yeah, I ended up at Bucknell because it had the academics that I wanted. I had a team that was really focused, and it wasn't a team that was a one or two individuals. It had been a team that was really productive for the last 20 years almost by the time I got there. So it turned out to be a pretty easy decision. And Jason Cahilly also, I kind of ran against him a bunch in high school. And we were always going head to head. He went to Carlisle High School. And it was funny, I think kind of somewhere around the state meet, which was whatever, early May. Neither of us, I think, really knew where we were gonna finally end. We hadn't fully kind of told people yet. But we both thought the other was going to some Ivy League school. We were from central Pennsylvania. Cornell, Bucknell is all the same thing. But ended up, it was great. We kind of realized around that time window that we were both going the same place. And then it kind of really ended up being nearly roommates for 4 years. It was great. Yeah.
All right, Wally, let's hear your story.
Yep.
Cross country and track camp is how it all started. So probably I'm from Baltimore. Like Bronfenbrenner, so like you, Dave, I thought I was the man when I got to Bucknell because I was the fastest 2-miler in the state of Maryland. That doesn't really matter at all when you get to Bucknell and realize that, oh, wait a minute, everything north of Maryland is a lot better and faster than the state of Maryland. But no, camp, I was almost thrown out of camp. I picked up trash in the middle of the night due to some shenanigans and hijinks. Bronfenbrenner, like you, I have many high school altercations with Coach Golden that involved a lot of different activities. And I was always somehow caught or at least implicated. But we actually got to build a beautiful relationship over 3 years of high school camp. There was never a question for me of where I wanted to go. And Bucknell is the only place I went to. And got in early decision. And because I got in early decision, I found out later that allowed Matt Kodak, who's not on the call, to get in because he was a friggin' idiot in high school, apparently. And of course, ends up coming to Bucknell, being a fantastic athlete and graduating with honors, which I did not. That's how I got to Bucknell, the camp. Still have great memories to this day. I still have the t-shirts. Almost put one on, but they're upstairs. They're very sacred to me, but I have all my high school camp shirts.
What's funny, Wally, is Rick Sayer gave a very similar talk. I guess he went to the camps when he was in high school, and he got in trouble with Coach Golden.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He did.
Also, Coach Golden must have liked the troublemakers, or maybe that had a little edge to them, and that's what he liked.
Yeah, I spent quite a bit of time doing some rough punitive punishment at camp because of stuff we were doing. It was great. I loved every minute of camp. It was awesome, just amazing, and man, what a way to introduce yourself to Bucknell, to college, and then Coach Golden's something else. People hear the story now and they're like, how could you ever have done that? It was a different era, different time. And I really needed that level of discipline and honesty and just being challenged as a person. And camp gave me that. And my God, did everything at Bucknell live up to that once I was there. So.
All right. Norbert, tell us your story.
Okay. Well, I thinking back on it, I actually never went on a single recruiting trip. I was first generation American, didn't know anything at all about the recruiting process. And actually I was a soccer player all the way through freshman year in high school. I was okay, but I realized I wasn't going to play much. And there were basically annoying announcements every morning that the cross country teams looking for freshman boys and girls to join. I had run in 8th grade, a whopping 612 miles, so nothing nothing special, but I figured, I'm not really going to play much with soccer, so let me try out this cross country. So I went out for the cross country team. Second day of practice, they had a speed workout, ended up running low 5. I don't know where that came from, but obviously at that point, I knew that's what I wanted to do. The coach in the high school for my first 3 years was Bruce Hyde, Bucknell class of 1975. He was actually in Coach Golden's first recruiting class. So through Bruce, he spoke of Bucknell all the time. I didn't know much about it until he started telling me about it, realized how good of an academic school it was, heard nothing but great stories about the cross-country team and distance running. And he always spoke about Bucknell cross-country camp. So before my senior year, I went up to cross-country camp and I loved it. It was, the campus was great, really liked what Coach Golden said he was going to be doing. And what was interesting is that my high school nemesis was actually at camp. And Coach seemed to love him for some reason. His name was Jeff Brown, and he was telling me how he's hanging out with Coach, and he's eating dinner at Coach's house with him and Linda, and Coach was talking about him all the time. And I have to tell you, I was a little bit jealous of that, because I'm like, he's not that much better than me, but Coach had no idea who I was. So with all that in mind, I realized that Bucknell's where I wanted to go. So I applied early decision, and I got in. And I remember that first cross-country meet where I saw my high school nemesis, Jeff Brown, and all excited, I ran up to him and told him I got an early decision to Bucknell. And he looked at me, he goes, I got an early decision to William and Mary. So one little thing didn't go through, but obviously with the way everything went at Bucknell, I couldn't have been happier with the decision that I ended up making.
Great. Thanks, guys. Obviously, all of you ran for Coach Golden. And by the way, what he did during his career was just unbelievable. It's outstanding. Some of the stories are just incredible. The backstories are even better. I joke with people that if I retire as the second best coach in Bucknell history, but I can honestly say I'm the second best coach in the last 50 years at Bucknell. Been 51, Bucknell, he was here 31 years. I've been here 20 now. But anyway, all of you were recruited by him. And can you share what type of impact he had in your life? And maybe tell us your favorite story about Coach Golden. I know Wally was really close to him, and I'm sure he has some pretty good ones.
Yeah, too many to even remotely convey. He was fiery, incredibly fiery. He was, I know this is being recorded. He was not politically correct. Even in those days, not politically correct. But he had just an amazing ability to inspire and coach. And he cared about every single one of the athletes. So the one story, recurring theme, which I really always liked. So he was struggling when we were there. So Bronfenbrenner and I, when we were there, he was struggling with cancer on and off. And the whole team had shaved their heads. At that time, it was by design. Now it's just a matter of fact for me. But he used to, as he was getting healthier from the cancer, we would do these ridiculous workouts. And the manager at the time would kind of at the finish line of some of the intervals. We're out on the golf course doing the whole 2.5 or what have you. And we'd all be coming down and, steaming along, the whole pack of us. And you would get down to where the manager was at the time. That was Bobick, and then later on it was Pye. And he would just point in the distance and say, "Run until you catch Coach." He would be sprinting. He would be sprinting as fast as he could, waiting to get caught. And and he would do that from time to time. That was awesome. The other one, so Bronfenbrenner knows, and actually most of you guys know, a guy named Nick DiCarlo. We used to call him the rat, the white rat. Coach Golden, Coach Golden apparently wrestled like in high school or college. I wasn't sure where. And we'd be at the mat. You guys all know the mat in the field house. And Coach Golden would come out, and every now and then he'd wrestle rat on the mat. It was awesome. If you were there an hour before practice, you got to see Coach wrestle the rat. It was absolutely spectacular. So those are some of the stories I'm allowed to tell that are being recorded. I will say this. Hold on. I think I'm allowed to do this one. For my 21st birthday, Linda Goulden got me a cake at camp. At this time I was a counselor at camp. And it was a naked Barbie doll dancing on a pole. The pole was a straw. So Linda's not innocent in this either. So she also played along quite well. So there's just a few. I think those are PG. I think those are PG.
Norbert, what impact did Coach Golden have on you, and do you have any good stories?
Well, when I started to think about it, what I really realized about Coach is he seemed to really understand all the people on the team, and how, like Wally said, he was a great motivator, but he motivated people in different ways. He seemed to understand what sort of motivation everyone needed, whether it was just quietly saying something to them, or, having to ride someone a lot to try to get everything out of them that he had to. That's what he seemed to do. Obviously, there were some people that he spoke with a lot, had conversations. You always saw him walking around the track with people, and those people, more needed to be reassured more by Coach, and he needed to do that. I was one of the people that probably not as close to Coach as most of the people on the team. I don't have all the great stories like other people do, but what I remember most interesting, and it just kind of goes back to how he seemed to understand people, was my sophomore year, and we just finished this really big workout before a meet against Pitt. At the end, he had us doing some downhill halves and downhill miles. The last mile that we completed, it ended up being Steve West, Mike Scambaluri, and myself finishing it up with everyone else behind. So after that workout, I felt really good about how everything was going. Hadn't really talked to Coach much deeply up to that point, and he looked at me and he goes, after practice, he goes, "I want to talk to you." I'm like, okay, great. This is my moment. Finally going to get to talk to Coach. Going to be buddy-buddy with him like everyone else. Working out on the mat, sitting there, relaxing, waiting for him. And he comes by me. He goes, "Norbs, let's walk." I'm like, okay, great. And he starts walking. Now I'm walking next to him. And this is when the coach's office was up on the second floor of the gym. So we're walking through the gym, doesn't say anything. We get to the stairs. He's walking up. I'm walking next to him. He doesn't say anything. Make it all the way to the second floor. We start walking down the hallway. I'm walking next to him. He's not saying a word. He turns to go into his office. He just looks at me. He goes, "You're ready." I'm like, "Okay, is that it?" He goes, "That's it." And I was at first I was a little upset because I thought, my time is there. I'm going to get the relationship that a lot of other people have. We're going to be buddy-buddy. But from that point on, my sophomore year, I ended up running really well. I was in the top 7 the rest of the season and finished that way. So whereas I might have been upset at the time, that he didn't say much more than that. I mean, he said everything he needed to say. It's like he knew that it wasn't going to take much more than just give me that one little note. And from there on, everything went great.
Awesome. Matt?
Oh, I remember that workout, Norbs. Get crushed. So I would say my Coach story kind of goes back to this. Wally may have bounced off this word, just the loyalty that he had as well. In certain settings, maybe that's the best way to put it. But and this is probably entwined with a little bit of one of your best experiences around kind of the program as well. But I would say one of the low of my kind of time at Bucknell, and Norbs actually was one of the people that helped to pull us out of this, is our junior year at Cross, we absolutely choked. And I would say Norv was the captain then, and he and a couple other folks really kind of got the fire burning under us. That really set up our senior year. Our senior year in Cross, we were running we ran pretty decently, and made it to nationals. I think we kind of made it to nationals, I would say 4th out of the district or something like that. We got there kind of not strikingly, I'd say. And coach that year was the head of the coaches association for the NCAA cross country coaches. So he had to run the meetings. And I think we were ranked maybe 24th in the country. And I think there were 22 teams there. And at this coaches meeting, there was a lot of discussion about how the top 22 teams weren't at the meet, and that maybe they should have another strategy for how to pick these teams. And I can't remember if we knew about that before the race or not. My sense is that we probably did. But that was the year that kind of we went out and put together a good NCAA race, and I'd say Lutch ran out of his gourd and ran an absolutely phenomenal race. And what would he get, 20th or 13th or something like this? And at the follow-up kind of meeting after the race, there were a couple of coaches who brought that topic up again about maybe there should be a kind of a different way to pick the teams. But, it was just one of these things that kind of he had stood up for us before it, and he stood up for us after it. And that's kind of always the way he was. And especially when it came to the team and the team front and how kind of what it meant to him. So it was, I'd say that kind of embodies his personality a bit, in my mind, as much as anything else.
All right. Thanks. Your turn, Dave.
Geez, listen to you guys tell stories. It brings so many in mind I want to talk to you. But, one funny story we have with Coach, it was one winter, it was either my sophomore or junior year, and it had snowed a ton. And so the entire indoor track team was on the indoor track, all working out at the same time. And, the distance guys, that was back, we had, we'd have 20, 30 distance guys doing a speed workout on a 200-meter track all at the same time. And we were doing 200 repeats or 400-meter repeats, just over and over and over and over again. And, Coach was always really quiet during these workouts. You'd hit a split. Maybe he'd tell you what you hit, maybe not. You weren't, we never wore watches. So you're just going round and round. And on one of the laps, we came tearing around the far side of the track. The cages are all hanging, the curtains are all hanging, so he can't really see us. And one of the shot putters had thrown an errant shot put that came through the netting and carried the netting out into the track and took out like 10 guys as we're tearing around. So we all come to a stop, and everyone, gets back up, and we come jogging around back to the other side of the track. And as we come up the home stretch, Coach is looking at his watch, looking at us, looking at his watch. He just takes the thing, turns, and fires it off the wall. He smashes the stopwatch. And I don't even know if he said anything. He just did that, grabbed another watch, and we kept doing the repeats. I don't know if we even told him that it had happened. It just right back into it. But he had that way of making you want to keep going and keep running faster. The story Wally told earlier, chasing him down. You just wanted to try harder for him.
When I was coaching Broff, I used to keep an extra watch in my pocket to give to him because he used to shatter watches all the time.
I was going to say, I wonder, did he buy them by the case?
All the time. And I would just give him another one.
That's great.
The other story I had with him was one of the hard times we had. My junior year, Wally's senior year, we had a team that had really gelled and come together, and we had a bunch of different grade levels, everybody hitting their peak at the same time. And we came into the season targeting an NCAA berth, and coach had spray painted NC on the golf course for us and said it stood for no compromises. And that was kind of a theme we took through the whole year. What was weird is sort of that qualification, Matt, you were talking earlier, is that was the first year they had moved to this points scoring. So where, each district got first and second got in, and then the points came in next. So there wasn't a lot of understanding about how that all worked. And we had a really good year. We beat pretty much every team that we were supposed to. The meets that we lost to, I think we lost to like teams that were in the top 5, top 10 in the country that year. And then we showed up at the district meet and we ran really well. We finished 3rd, beating schools like Villanova. And the two teams in the district that beat us ended up pretty high in the NCAAs that year. But when it came to points, we basically hadn't raced anybody that we could beat to score. So we had 0 points and we didn't make it. And I remember coach talking to the team afterwards, and it was one of those, he was very comforting in a way, given a really, really hard time. I know for the senior class, like Wally and Kodak, it was pretty heartbreaking, but, coach was able to keep us together. He took some responsibility for the schedule. We took some responsibility for the running, and it was a powerful moment that even in rough times, he held the team together. So it was a pretty good time. But yeah, lots of other crazy stories. He once asked me if I wanted to be an elephant or a rhinoceros, and he had these ways of talking about things. So yeah, big impact.
All right, let's let Ben ask a question now. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with Wally. What advice would you give me or any other runner that's in the program today about your college cross-country experience at Bucknell?
Man, savor every minute of it. Try to spend as much time with your teammates as you can. What I found instrumental to me, and I learned this the hard way after my freshman year, going back home to Baltimore and not getting a summer to spend time with my teammates. We lived on campus in the summer the whole rest of the way, all the way through. Even when I was a grad assistant, a grad student, I had to change locations a few times, but the idea of that chemistry that comes together, it's not dissimilar to an NBA team. If you watch the chemistry of 5 people coming together, and I'm looking at the Miami Heat right now, I'm like, they clearly aren't the best team, but boy, they are right now the best group of people to have to compete against this other thing that is LeBron and the Lakers. And that is almost exactly the way Bucknell's men's cross-country program's been. We always ran as a pack, right? It didn't matter who was who or who was number 1 or who was number 5. Everybody ran together and everybody was expected in that moment where it was required to step up. So the more time you can spend with each other and do that, the better served you will absolutely be. I won't speak on academics. I never took them very seriously. It hasn't affected my career, I don't think. But what has affected my career is the time I've spent talking to Coach Golden and my teammates, and just trying to think about lessons I've learned that I apply later in life is just invaluable. And on this call, in some combination, one of the greatest blessings of Bucknell is I have raced as a teammate with every single person on this call. And I think I've only gone to school with one of them, and that's Bronfenbrenner. And I had the pleasure of being his captain, and then he was a captain when I was a grad student. The idea that we would get to graduate and run with an all-star team of these people on this call was just exceptional. So these lessons aren't just like in the moment, they will carry you on further. And also the running will go on further. It won't go on forever, but the running can go on for at least a decade after you've graduated and running with your teammates. And there is nothing there's nothing more exceptional than that, and also other lessons to be learned. That's a culture that Coach Golden started. It is a culture that Coach Donner has encouraged. And Bronfenbrenner and I are the bridge between Coach Golden and Coach Donner. The tradition lives on. So, but those personal relationships are so much more meaningful than the athletic accolades. The accolades will come, but this is a very special moment in time in your life, and man, enjoy every single minute of it. Anytime I come back, I say, there's not a single one of us on this call that wouldn't want to be in your shoes right now, because that's what it was like.
Yeah.
We miss it and we love it.
Amen.
Well, funny you say that, Wally. Obviously, our season's been canceled. Last outdoor season has been canceled. So our guys were away from each other for a long time.
Yeah. And
even though our season was canceled this fall, the sting was kind of taken away because they're together. They're together right now. They're with each other. They're training. We weren't even allowed to practice as a team for the first 5 weeks of school, but guys like Ben formed groups, and and I just saw a very happy team.
Yeah.
Even though they're not competing, they were happy that they're with each other, and the training's been going as good as it's ever been, hasn't it, Ben? I mean, it's been going really well, and now we are starting to practice, but I told these guys, when our alumni get together, they don't talk a lot about winning and losing, but they talk about the relationships. And I think our guys are really getting that right now.
Relationships lead to winning, Ben. They lead to winning. I'm telling you right now. So, our championships, we were the first men's cross country team to beat Army. That happened in the summer. When Coach Golden was kind of around, but not really. It was us running together on our own, talking and planning and plotting, and occasionally getting into trouble. But those relationships go a long way. And Bronfenbrenner, you can speak to that as well.
Might be on mute.
What goes in there is the willingness to sacrifice too. I mean, I found it, especially since graduating, is running for your teammates is way more inspiring than running for yourself to set PRs. We even saw sometimes that letdown in track, but in the cross country season, like when you're climbing that hill or, coming tearing towards the finish, what got you there was knowing that my teammates care about how I pull this off. I'm doing it for them. And, you lose that once you leave Bucknell, even competing for club teams. I ran with a team in California for a while, and it's not the same. But those rare occasions Wally talked about when we would, get together as an alumni team to run one of these relay races, or even just get back to her for alumni meet. It's, we'd run relay races with guys that hadn't run in 2 months, but you're still out there sacrificing and running yourself to where you can't even bend your leg at the knee. Because it means so much to sacrifice for the teammates. And, that does transfer into life when you get onto teams in the workplace and everything like that sense for there's a greater good out there than yourself. And that's what I think was really important.
And if I may, I'll add one other thing to that kind of concept, is that the relationships with these other people around you. And I think what happens is you end up generating a set of expectations that each person contributes to what that expectation should be or is. And that completely translates. I think the example that I would use for my year was the summer before our senior year. This was back when it was hard to get tattoos. You might have seen this at a camp, Wally. But this was, it was our junior year, where we had this year that we just didn't, we wanted to learn something from it. And I say we did learn something from it during that off season after cross country, where we really didn't take an off season. But going into our senior year, a bunch of us were on campus. And then the thought was, well, we're going to get tattoos. And just kind of something by these days standards is pretty modest. It's just a bison on your leg, but it was the concept that if you run well, this is going to be a memento for the rest of your life. If you choke again, it's going to kill you for the rest of your life. So completely as a group built in this set of expectations, and then we had to put it on the line. And I think that's the other piece that you really learn kind of from coach and your teammates, is you just putting it on the line for each other. And that's really what makes these performances on the track, in the alumni races, in work going forward, so meaningful.
Yeah. Norbert, do you have anything to add to that, or?
Just along the same lines, they're mentioning the alumni races. I mean, the idea of running hood to coast, the 196-mile relay race out in Oregon, which you're basically not getting any sleep. You're in this van with these sweaty people for hours on end. One year, I got blisters so bad during the first leg of the race that the shoes I had, which were white, when I finished that first leg, they were literally red from the blisters scraping off, the blood going all over the place. And I didn't think once to drop out of the race. It was painful, but you know, nothing I wouldn't do for the team. I knew any thought of dropping out would screw up everyone else. We had everyone lined up, what legs they needed to run. Anyone drops out, that means someone gets to run a fourth time. And it's just like, I can't think of any other group that I would have done anything like that for. But that's just kind of what you'll learn. It's almost like a family, and it's just like, you think you have a nice family while you're there at Bucknell, and then you graduate, and then the family just, you know, increases exponentially, because now it's not just you, now it's you and all the alumni. So you end up meeting and hanging out with people who, like you said, you weren't even in school with. You know, I'll run a race, and none of the guys I was with, you know, were at Bucknell at the same time I was. So it's
I think on this call that Bronfenbrenner ran your leg, Norbs, later, and I ran Deardorff's leg.
Yeah.
I think that's how it played out. I think, yeah. But we all ran together in some combination at some point, which is just an absolute blessing. We're so lucky.
Yeah.
Great. Matt, what was your most memorable experience as a member of the cross-country team?
The cross country, it's actually pretty easy. I think really what it was that senior year trip, that senior where we weren't sure if we were going to put it together, but we did end up putting it together. And it was Tucson was where that NCAA race was. And it was, we had put in the work, kind of, I don't think we were overconfident. I don't think we were underconfident. And what was kind of amazing for that season even was that the district race, I don't think we would have made NCAAs had not Jeff Loomis thrown in a screaming close in that race. I think he probably passed about 30 people in the last mile to get us to NCAAs. And then and then at NCAAs, somebody else stepped up, and Tom Wichenick stepped up and ran a phenomenal race out in Arizona. So it was one of those pieces where you couldn't say that any one person kind of got us there. What you get, the best, you were hoping for consistency, and if you could step up beyond that, it was even better. But what had happened was that I remember that race going out so crazy hard. It was funny. I think they went through in like 4:30, and it was kind of this downhill, kind of down a fairway, and then just kind of sucking really hard in that second mile. But it all kind of, and then I kind of forgot the rest of it. Kind of really, I don't remember the rest of that race. But what was what was fun about it, and this kind of ties back to coach, is that after the race, for some reason, we ended up with an extra $100 to spend on food. And he wasn't going to look if the van ended up across the Mexico border or not. So we had and I think we stayed an extra day, if I recall, even. So we had a really kind of great time and had a really good time to celebrate it there as well. And then coming back to the family piece, just kind of getting back to seeing the rest of the team and how excited everybody was about it. And this was back before the days of the internet as well. But they had heard all about it and kind of knew what happened. So it was just a lot of fun. Huge thing for us to celebrate and frankly kind of keep celebrating. So.
All right. And David, your most memorable experience as a member of the team?
I may have the same one as Wally. My sophomore year, his junior year, when we beat Army for the first time. We came, that's one of those races where example of people just stepping up. Army had destroyed the team 2 years prior, and then my freshman year, we had seen signs that we might be able to beat them, and that was one of those. We were working hard towards that, and that race was at Colgate, which is just a mountain of a course. So you guys have run Colgate. They don't run the upper loop anymore, which was like climbing a whole other mountain all over again. So it was really hilly. It was one of those things that, for Army being as strong and powerful as they're supposed to be, they were pretty weak on hills. And I remember that race. We had one guy, Greg Colburn, go out, and he went out like a bat out of hell in front of everybody, led the race, and everyone else went out a little easily, and almost to where we all forgot about him. And the rest of the team ran along, and I remember running back with Wally for a while, and then we just hit the downhill stretches, and I just had one of those days where it felt right and started picking people off. And coming up the home stretch, I was racing a guy who had qualified for NCAAs in the 10K, and another guy who'd been like top 20 at the cross country districts the year before. And here I was a year removed from not even being able to break 5 in the mile. And I remember out kicking him in the home stretch and finishing. And, we won the meet easily. We put 4 guys in the top 6, and then 5 and 6 guys were like 11th and 12th against a team we hadn't beaten before. And that feeling from the team, like we had people stepping up out of nowhere, some guys not running quite as well, but like there was always someone to fill back in. And it just, it was just a league, just a league meet in a way. It was just beating Army, but it was sort of the world at the time. And the feelings with that were just amazing.
Is that your most memorable moment, Wally, as well, would you say?
No, for me, it was the year after. The pressure that comes with defending a championship is very hard. So the following year, we were at home. We're at home defending a championship. And we wore the old gray sweats. Remember that, Bronfenbrenner?
Wear.
The old gray sweats. And I still have
mine. I thought about wearing them tonight.
I still got a set of old gray sweats that they gave us. And I think they could only assemble 7 of them because they were just all in tatters and just, ready for the dustbin of history. And I remember it was a beautiful day. God, it was a beautiful day. And let's be honest, we weren't very good, and alumni didn't come around to see us very often, like very few. But we're now defending champions, and there were alumni everywhere. We're at home. And Coach Golden came over, and Coach Golden was crying. Coach Golden didn't know. We switched the gray sweats at the last minute. And Coach Golden just came down and said, "That's good." And we got handshakes before the race. That never happens. So that was special.
All right. Norbert, who was the teammate you admired the most throughout your career, and why?
Well, it's hard. At Bucknell, there are just so many great runners. They had my freshman year, they had a 4x16 that was ranked, high in the nation. But if I had to pick out one person, I'd have to go with our old Hall of Famer, Matt Deardorff. My my freshman year, I ended up getting a stress fracture. And during the indoor season, I ended up having to spend some time in the pool. And it was the most monotonous workouts you could ever think of. I mean, luckily I didn't have to stay in there that long. Luckily, I got through the injury and never had to be back in there. Now, Matt he was injured a lot. I mean, he was in the pool, I think, almost every single year. Sometimes he was even doubling in the pool. And just his perseverance, just to be able to put the time in, whether it was on the roads, whether it was in the pool, just to kind of keep himself healthy enough to run well, it just really impressed the hell out of me. Also, what people might not know is my sophomore year when we qualified for nationals, Matt was a freshman that year. I never beat him in any race that we ran in cross country that year. But what ended up happening is that because he was injured so much that I was the person that ended up getting the spot instead of him. So just impressed all the way through, and happy to see him these days. And catching up with him back in October was a blessing.
Great. And Dave, who was the teammate you admired the most? You're on mute.
So I used to say when I was in school, Ron Hess was my hero. So Ron Hess and I were classmates. He's in the Hall of Fame. Ron was a quieter guy on the team. Sometimes, he struggled with some of our shenanigans at times. But when it came time to race, there was no one I wanted to model myself off of more than Ron. And I'm pretty sure he knows this. And there was a switch that he could turn on in the later parts of a race that I always wanted to emulate, never really could, where when it came down to 2-3 laps left in a race or in a cross-country race, you knew that Ron was going to win. It was just a given. He would find a place to go to, and I'd try and learn from him on that and talk that, and he was just an overall good guy. So he was someone that I chased after my entire career, and was proud to be teammates with.
Well, he's living in town in Lewisburg, and he's a very successful high school coach. His cross-country team at Lewisburg High won the state title last year. They tied for the championship, and he had two sons. His first son finished like in the top 5 or 6, and then his second son, the young one, was the 6th man, and he was the guy that won the tiebreaker for pros. So he's a heck of a day for the Hess family there.
Yeah.
To win a state title. So he's still being local. I run into him quite a bit. Why don't you throw your questions out now?
So what advice would you give about networking and finding a job after Bucknell? So I'll direct this one towards Matt.
It's an interesting question, and I would say it wasn't particularly relevant for me until the last few years, even. So I don't know that I finished up kind of how I ended up getting to LA. I'd been in Philly doing peds and genetics for 15 years, and ended up getting recruited out here to set up a basic kind of personalized medicine for the biggest children's hospital in LA. And my wife, who's Canadian, had run the provincial genetics program for the province of Newfoundland for 20 years. So it was an opportunity for us to come out here and kind of build some stuff. What's noteworthy about it is that this wasn't a job that was advertised. It was a job that kind of they knew what my skill set was, and some of the leadership here kind of felt they knew what they needed anyway. And I think kind of what really the take home for that a little bit is this is one of those lessons from Bucknell as well, and from running more broadly too, is that whatever you do, try to do it as well as you can. People recognize that, and you don't have to be overly serious about it, but take it seriously, because it really does matter. And it's even kind of the little things that I kind of thought, well, I'm just getting that taken care of, get it out of the way, that actually had made some impression on some of the folks that were recruiting me out here. So it was, I think part of that piece is do what you do and do it as well as you can. And that's not really a how to network in a sense, but it is a way of kind of having people know that you're quality and they can count on you. And that's ultimately what people are looking for, is that, are you going to do what they need you to do? And if that aligns with what you really want to be doing, that's even better. And I got lucky that way. But I think that's part of it. Wally, you're a communications guy. You may have some better kind of tips on networking than what I do.
I mean, I don't. I mean, I've been it's easy to me. And my first job came to me through a fellow teammate, through a Bucknell alum that had graduated. Actually, she was a year behind me. So Erin Healy, Bronfenbrenner knows. Erin Healy got me my first lead because I was still in grad school. And don't underestimate. So Jerry Jurek played a really big role kind of in my maturation in just business. And then Joe Cresco and Laurie, and don't underestimate the power of our own group to George Buckheit, Fulham. I mean, one of the nicest things about the alumni program wasn't just, glory days, that those glory days, led to a lot of wins, but also were relationships that led to professional success. Don't dismiss that. And I didn't get a chance to answer the other question, but I'm just gonna, I'll do it right here. Bronfenbrenner on this call is the one I admire most. He was a weird dude. He was a weird dude. I mean,
Still am.
He did not make any sense at all. And I will never forget, we'd come off a really tough meet. And we were cruising around the golf course, and he was just like bebopping, doing whatever crazy ass shit he did. And Kodak grabbed him. So Kodak and I were captains at the time. And Kodak literally grabbed him and said, "What are you doing? Why aren't you the number one runner on the team? Why aren't you the guy?" Literally the next meet, Bronfenbrenner was the number one guy. I've never seen a transformation like that in a runner that I saw in Dave. So that's one I admire most. I guess the only theme I can string between those two answers is rely on your elders. And sometimes when you keep it in the family, you reap great rewards by keeping it in the family. Don't ever underestimate that. I'm not into social media and the LinkedIn and all. I'm kind of old school that way, maybe to my detriment, but like my personal network, this group and folks in my professional career have, kept me solid, kept me whole. And sometimes don't forget where you came from. And don't forget some of the power of the people that you've met and that went before you, because the people that went before you have a lot to say and a lot to offer.
Thanks, Wally.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
But one other thing back to that, and this was so Brian Fulham ran I never ran at Bucknell with Fulham, but I started running the alumni stuff with him, and I remember kind of some of those first alumni things that we were doing with these Alamo alumni runs up in New York in Central Park. And we had gone out, I can't remember the name of this bar that we went out to, but I can vaguely remember some ships.
It's an Irish bar.
Irish place, yeah.
Irish bar in Central Park, yeah.
Yeah, but we got kicked out of it for trying to kiss the lady from the ship. But I was in grad school, and I remember Fulham. Fulham, I think, had finished kind of med school, and he had a job or podiatry school, and he had a job at that point. And he kind of, I tried to dig out whatever $6 that I had as a med student to pay for whatever. And Fulham was just kind of, he was insulted, and he basically was like, "Look, you don't pay until you graduate, and then you pay for other people who are students." Or who need it, really. And it's funny because I've used that the rest of my career. Anytime there's a trainee that we're walking around talking about a clinical case and we stop for coffee, there is no trainee that's ever going to pay for anything with me. And I think this philosophy carries on to the people on the team now as they come out. If you need anything, just ask. And that's really all it's going to take.
Awesome.
Great. One more question. I know we're getting toward the end here, and this is for all you guys. I've been the head coach here now. This is my 20th year, and I've had my success. I've had my failures. Things have been different. But with that said, what type of advice would you give me as the current head coach? Start with Dave.
So, I mean, my big thing, what I respect most about Bucknell and the cross country program is the focus on the team. And, I've continued to see that there. Some schools can get tied up in, recruiting the all-star individual and putting all the focus on having a individual champion in something. But what I've respected most about your coaching and what I think embodies the Bucknell spirit is continue that team camaraderie, because as we've talked through tonight, it's what sets you up for life and is what you really learn out of this running thing. And so, keeping that team close together, working out together, you never know, who's going to become the next great runner, and everybody's got a chance. And that team coming together is just, it's keep that around.
All right. Matt, any advice for me?
I think some of these things that happened to us at Bucknell were these moments where we ended up going through some curtain, if you will, that we didn't think we could go through to get to that next level. And again, some of these races, you don't really remember them. You just know what the time was at the end because you were so much in another place, whether it was hypoxia or whatever it was. But I think the point of that is enabling people to push themselves, to push each other, and in a way with that goal of you want this out of the end of it. And that's a very philosophical answer to you. But I think that really is the piece that from a team perspective, but also from a life perspective, that it is good to be uncomfortable. It's good to be in that zone where you don't quite know if you're going to make it to the other end of it or not. Because if you don't make it, you're going to figure out how to do it the next time. And I think that kind of the strategy is what you're doing, and just keep kind of pedal to the metal on that.
Great, thanks. Wally?
This is tough because, I was on the group that hired you, Coach Donner, and it's probably, it's hard. It's probably the best hire that I ever was involved in, to be honest. I've hired a lot of people. Coach Golden said towards the end when I was coaching, it's become a business. You don't understand how it's going to change. It's not what it was. It's going to be something different. And he could not have been more accurate. And I'm humbled by the work that you're doing and the way that you manage both the business aspects of this and also the people. I mean, you are the CEO of a pretty large organization. And that is not an easy thing to do. I have never, first of all, not that I've never seen, the men's and women's team have never been as close as they had been under you. The number of championships is beyond anything that any of us could have imagined. Now, would all of us on this call like a men's cross country championship? Hey, Ben, work on that for us, will you? We would love to see a men's cross country championship. But the overall health of the program could not be better. So this is a really, really tough one for me. Coach Donner, you're doing everything you can do. I love what you're working on. You and I are in regular communication. So anything that you actually had to work on or I was concerned with, I would tell you. But I'm telling you, I could not be more proud of the program and the tradition that I know quite well that you've sustained. So I'm a total sycophant in this one. I'm sorry, but I would tell you if it was wrong, but I'll tell you when it's right. And you've done an exceptional job. And I don't know how you do it. And we're living in exceptional times. And I know it's probably going to get harder before it gets better. And you're the guy for the job. You're doing a fantastic job.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry. Wish I had a better answer for that, but yeah.
Norb?
I got to go first start from the business side, like Wally was saying. I mean, we had a long conversation while you were down here in Tampa for NCAAs, and you were telling me about everything you were doing, how you have the track meets and you're bringing in more money than other events, and how you're doing the local races, and how you have the students volunteering. And you were basically pointing out that, what you saw coming is you had to make sure you kept the program relevant. And, didn't think much of it at the time, but then when everything happened this year, you just see different universities left and right just dropping their XC programs, dropping their track and field. And these are teams you never thought would do anything like that. So you saw it coming before a lot of other people did. You set up Bucknell well in that respect. So it's from a business side, just keep doing that. Keep it relevant, and we're going to be able to keep having these Zoom sessions. From a personal point, you've done a very good job in keeping all the alumni involved. Just the simple emails going out, giving us updates. We all get lost in life. It's hard to keep up with everything that's going on, or go to a website, the Bucknell website, see what's doing. But we get the emails from you. We know it's usually a short read, but everything we need to know about the program. When you have the events at Bucknell, there's usually have some sort of alumni function there. Alumni show up, chit chat with one another, and that's basically it keeps Bucknell going the way it's always been going. One big happy family, whether you're in school, whether you're out of school. So no, I don't have any suggestions. Just keep doing what you're doing. I think you're doing a great job.
Well, thanks, guys. And this is a different time, and especially with COVID and overspending at a lot of universities. Yes, men's track and field is a target for people for universities dropping it, but we're going to make it indispensable at Bucknell. That's my goal. We're going to be indispensable, and we're going to do everything we can to make us that way. So I appreciate all you guys coming out. Todd, it's all you now.
All right. Well, guys, what an awesome session. I mean, I know we went a little longer than an hour, but this was great stuff and great memories to hear you guys share. And hopefully, Ben, you got a lot out of this, can take it back to your teammates. I want to thank you again, Ben, for taking the time tonight and being on the call, and wish you a healthy rest of the first semester here, and keeping our fingers crossed that come wintertime and the spring, you guys are competing. And if you are going to be out there rooting for you, and I'm sure all the alums will be pulling for you and the team as well. To the alums for getting on the call again tonight, thank you so much. Thank you for what you all did while you were here wearing the orange and blue, but more importantly, thank you for what you've all done since you left Bucknell. The Spike Shoe family is just that. It's a true family in every sense of the word. The current student athletes couldn't have the successes they have without the assistance they get from the alumni, and the Spike Shoe alumni base is certainly one of our strongest. So thank you guys for everything you do there. And those of you who tuned in tonight and watched from home, thanks for doing that. And go